So it's been 6 months since the October the 7th attack on Israel. And, lots of different leaders are putting out videos commemorating, talking about what happened. And I thought now is a really good time to have a conversation whether Israel is actually starting to lose support on the international stage. After October the 7th initially happened, there was pretty much universal support for Israel's retaliatory attack.
Yeah.
And now, people are starting to question what happened on October the 7th. We're seeing countries like the US and the UK actually starting to fray and saying our support is no longer unequivocal.
Yeah.
And there's also big questions about how this actually ends. What happens with Benjamin Netanyahu when all this is done? Like, how do you defeat Hamas? So on October the 7th, actually, what are your thoughts on how sort of, I suppose, people have been treating that, from 6 months ago to where we are now?
Well, I mean, initially people had almost unconditional support for Israel.
Yeah.
But 6 months on, and now people are actually starting to question the legitimacy of October the 7th, whether or not Israel allowed Hamas in the country as a pre-context for war, and whether or not it was used as a reason to essentially, for lack of a better term, destroy Hamas.
Yeah, and it should be said that a lot of those were treated as conspiracy theories when we first heard them. But now more people are believing them. I saw it firsthand. I was recently doing a public lecture on Israel and Palestine in Manchester, and some of the students came to me after, and pretty much all of them, that's all they said. They were like, well, we don't actually believe what happened on October the 7th. How can we trust Israel's report? Which is really interesting because that wasn't the case 6 months ago, but now more and more people. And recently a poll just, I wonder what your thoughts are on this poll, that found that 46% of British Muslims support Hamas.
Okay.
And 25% of UK Muslims don't believe that Hamas actually committed murder or rape, on October the 7th. I mean, that's a pretty sizable chunk of the population who no longer believe the official account of what happened on October the 7th.
Some people go one step further and say that they don't believe that Hamas is guilty of murder in the first place because the context that comes with killing. Murder means to kill someone without a just cause. If they consider themselves to be freedom fighters and to liberate the Palestinian diaspora in that region, then they don't consider defending themselves to be outright murder.
It makes it quite tricky, doesn't it? Because you're right. Some people say, well, because of the blockade, because of the kind of stranglehold that Israel has, people have described the Gaza as an open-air prison. And so, we've heard the sort of statement given that if you've oppressed a group of people for so long, when they strike back, is that murder, or is it really kind of a desperate plea to sort of get out? I do think it's fascinating, though, how, as you said, unconditional support for Israel before, and now we're slowly seeing it fray, and more people are questioning what happened on October the 7th. Was Israel warned beforehand? How is it that, one of the sort of most guarded places in the world suddenly allows all these, or suddenly all these kind of militant groups can just kind of break in? People are asking that question. And I guess what's also changed as well is even the tunes of countries like the UK and the US, who are probably Israel's biggest allies. The UK sells arms to Israel, as does the USA. And even they're starting to change their tune. 6 months on, things are changing. What are some of the things we're seeing?
Okay, so we have Foreign Secretary David Cameron, and he said that essentially...
Oh, it's Lord Cameron.
It's Lord Cameron now. Is it really?
Yeah, it's Lord Cameron.
He got made a Lord, isn't it? Yeah. So I was going to say, he came out and he basically said that Britain's support for Israel is not unconditional, and that, sending arms to them, as long as it abides by international humanitarian law, then they'll continue to sell arms. But on the event that it doesn't, then they've been advised legally to stop selling arms to Israel.
Yeah.
And as for America, well, they're kind of concerned about the changing opinion of Israel. And some would argue that the reason why they're concerned about it is not so much about what Israel's doing, but because America and Israel always had a very close relationship. And so what Israel does, some would argue, the reflection of what America is allowing them to do.
Yeah, we can dig deeper into that even, because I think you make two good points there. One is that with Lord Cameron, the shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy has asked for the government to publish their sort of official advice to Israel, so we kind of understand what the nature of the relationship is. one of the things that's leading, as you said, to more and more countries questioning Israel is how they've gone about trying to secure a defeat from Hamas.
Right.
It's led to an inordinate amount of women and children dying. Right, it's led to Israel in some instances not allowing aid to get in. We saw not too long ago the mistaken, or the alleged mistaken hit of a charity group that was actually administering aid by Israel. And so Lord Cameron is saying, well, if we're selling arms to Israel, maybe this becomes a bit of a bargaining chip for us. We make what we sell Israel conditional on how they treat kind of aid, how they treat aid workers, how they allow for humanitarian intervention. And equally, Biden said the same thing. You know, our support for Israel is contingent on them showing us their plan for how they're going to look after, civilians. Because again, over 33,000 people have died now in Palestine, and so something has to be done. Does Benjamin Netanyahu actually listen to anybody? What bargaining chip do they have? And it seems like it's right now it's the selling of arms potentially.
I mean, that seems to be the case.
Yeah, and I guess that the really sad thing now, and the third point is, well, how does this all end? That's one of the things that's changed as well. Initially, I think many people thought after October the 7th, Israel would mount a counteroffensive, destroy Hamas's capabilities, all these tunnels we've heard about, that would be destroyed. And pretty much after that's done, we're sort of, things are finished. But it's been 6 months, and Israel's still attacking. And people are saying, well, how do you actually defeat an idea? You can't. And the sad thing is, when you've had 33,000 people die, well, a lot of those people were dads, they were uncles, and so all those nieces and nephews are being radicalized. All those sons and daughters are being radicalized, and they're going to grow up hating Israel. And so how do you actually defeat an idea when really your actions may actually be radicalizing a whole new generation of young people who are going to be committed to the destruction of Israel once over?
Honestly, I don't think you can defeat an idea. It seems to be a never-ending war. It seems to be a never-ending conflict. I don't think you can really defeat the idea of, Israel, Palestine, who owns the land. You can't really defeat the idea.
Yeah, but I guess what they would say is, well, if we can take out all the generals, all the leaders, then the capacity of the group can be destroyed. And I guess that's the most pressing thing, is how do we immediately destroy Hamas's capacity to launch a similar attack? And it's important to notice and to note that the attack we saw on October the 7th was the biggest atrocity done to Jewish people since the Holocaust. It's unparalleled in sort of what happened there. And so you can understand the sort of desire to ensure that Hamas never has the capabilities to do that again.
Of course.
But I do sometimes come back to the question of,
is their response proportionate?
What does a victory look like?
Is their response to their attack, is it proportionate?
Yeah. Well, the proportionality is difficult because, one is hard to measure proportionate, but also they have different stated aims. In the case of Hamas, based on their charter, their founding charter, it's the destruction of Israel. But that's their founding charter. For Israel, it's to destroy Hamas so they can't destroy us. And so you kind of go, well, what are their stated ends? They both want the destruction of each other. And so in that sense, that question of proportionate, you have to kind of wonder, how do you actually measure that? I mean, yes, you could look at civilians and how's it, but then Israel has a massive Iron Dome system that shoots down sort of missiles, where Hamas doesn't. And so there's all those kind of inequities. But I don't know if it's as easy to define proportionality as a lot of people sort of make it out to be.
Is it even moral to do that? Can one life be taken for another life? Is that how we do these things now? Yeah. Well, it's not moral to.
Yeah, but one thing that's you're absolutely right. But one thing that is definitely interesting is how 6 months on the global picture looks so different. Israel's being called out. We're seeing South Africa take cases to the United. We're seeing things change, and I wonder how many days or weeks even Benjamin Netanyahu has left to really get things done or risk losing total global support for this war.
I mean, most people would argue that his political career will end when this conflict ends, if it ever ends. But,
Yeah.
yeah.